From New Jersey, this is Low Fidelity. I'm Jeff Heller.
And I'm Mike Labrie. On this episode, we will be reviewing John Prine by John Prine.
If you want to support Low Fidelity, rate and review us on iTunes, subscribe to us on our Reddit and YouTube channels, and follow us on Twitter with the handle Lo-Fi Podcast.
All the links you need are in the description, but please, if you have any feedback for us, feel free to leave it in the comments on this episode or send us an old-fashioned email, feedback@lowfidelity.info.
All right, welcome to another episode of Low Fidelity. We are going to be reviewing this lovely album by John Prine. Let's get right to it. What do you say?
Let's do it.
John Prine is an American bluegrass and country singer, songwriter, and guitarist born in 1946 near Chicago, Illinois. His parents were raised in Paradise, Kentucky, where the family would regularly spend their summers. John's brother taught him the guitar at age 14, but it wasn't until the late 1960s when then postman Prine took a dare at an open mic and soon became a regular fixture in the Chicago folk scene. A series of fortunate events, including a rave review from Roger Ebert and being discovered by Kris Kristofferson, would land John Prine a record deal with Atlantic Records. His music is infused with stories of his life, the industrialization of his parents' hometown, and his own blissfully quiet and smiling nature being some of them, but more remarkably are the stories he shares of other people, providing a uniquely varied color of society in his time. Bob Dylan has said that Prine's material is pure Proustian existentialism and Midwestern mind trips to the nth degree, while Ebert praised him by writing this about his live performances. He starts slow, but after a song or two, even the drunks in the room begin to listen to his lyrics, and then he has you. Prine continues to write and record albums to this day, even after his fight with throat cancer in 1998, which would significantly alter his singing voice. Though his career has many highlights, his self-titled debut is still seen as a landmark in American folk music, and that is the album that we will be reviewing in this episode. Let's talk about required listening first. And the particular song that I wanted to bring out as required listening is from Bob Dylan, The Lonesome Death of Hattie Carroll. The song itself is about something inspired by true events, but it's the structure of the song that influenced John Prine, and we're going to hear this pretty heavily in his song structure, which is the verses are describing actions, whereas the chorus describes the moral. So this idea of progressing the story, but the chorus roots everything back in some tale or some moral that we're supposed to get from it.
Kind of in addition to that, I think it's a great way to frame the overall music. And another way, you sent me a wonderful interview to listen to.
Did you listen to it?
Yeah, I did listen to it. So tell me about who were the folks that were involved in the interview, and then I'll go to my point here.
Great. So I'm going to link this in the description, of course, but it is this wonderful interview with John Prine and Sturgill Simpson. People have been saying he's sort of like, bringing forward this new wave of country in today's music. Sturgill Simpson is a very popular figure currently in that style. This was between them and an interviewer for, I think it was the Grammy, one of the Grammy foundations.
Right.
But a really great introduction to who John Prine is.
Yeah, I love it. It was so personable and so honest and down to earth. And one of the things that really jumped out to me is he described, was he referring to Elvis songs at this point? It was like, well, every song is going to have three choruses or three verses and three choruses, because that's what I was listening to, and I thought that's just how you do songs, and we're going to see so much of that. So I think you take the Dylan obvious influence and time frame here, you combine it with, this is my structure for writing a song, this is the album you come up with.
So the way we can do this is just like what we did with Michael Jackson's Thriller, where we basically go track by track, but we'll see thematic elements kind of drawn throughout the album as we go through it. And I think that's a great way to go, because I think Illegal Smile as an opening track says so much about John Prine specifically, whereas most, if not all, of the rest of the tracks are going to be about other people.
Right, or made up fictional characters. Yeah, for sure. Going into this review, I wasn't sure if going track by track was going to be the way to handle it, especially because this is not my wheelhouse. This is not the kind of stuff I regularly listen to. As I continued listening to the album, I'm realizing, this is kind of the stuff that I do like to listen to. I just don't ever really let this genre into my heart, and maybe I should more. This album, each individual song, Jeff, I gotta tell you, by the time I was done listening to it for the first time, I knew entire songs and lyrics. That was absurd to me. And Illegal Smile, that phrase in and of itself is going to get stuck in your head as like this weird turn of phrase. But the song as a whole stuck with me throughout the rest of the album on that first listen through and then carrying forward.
I had the exact same experience the first time I listened to this as well. I want to mention quickly that I saw this in a list of albums that people should check out. It was at a time where I needed new music to listen to. What better thing to pick than something I would probably never pick?
Yeah, something you would never listen to on your own, but someone else is saying is essential listening, yeah, let me give it a try. And this is something, it's kind of my wrap up for the episode. I'm going to do it now though, because that's why I'm appreciative of this show, this podcast. It gives me a chance to listen to music I never would have picked this on my own to listen to. I never would have heard this in my life if you didn't tell me to listen to it. So let's start with Illegal Smile.
Great. Before you listen to an album, I just want to say as a side note that doing a little bit of research on the artist as you're listening to the album, not so much beforehand, but as you're listening to something, get a little background on the person, because you get a sense of where they're coming from, what kind of thing you're going to be listening to. And, you're going to have those initial first impressions that are important in music, but getting that additional information about a person can really clue you into what you're about to hear.
Let's talk about what you interpreted this song as meaning. And I know for some of the songs in this interview that we were talking about before, he explained some of them, and some of them kind of like have no meaning, which I absolutely adore, and we'll get to the end of that. But this song in particular, you seem like you were just describing. What do you think this song was about, Jeff?
The popular idea was that this was a song about marijuana. If you read the lyrics, I mean, there are a lot of phrases in here where, he's busted, thought control, and like this, not the non sequiturs at the end of the song. Hot dog bun, my sister's a nun.
Absolutely love that. Well done, hot dog bun, my sister's a nun. That's the kind of thing. Again, I'm going to go back to this one interview because he explained all this stuff. He said, we're not quite at Sam Stone yet, but they asked, how'd you come up with the name Sam Stone? Well, I needed it to rhyme with something, so that's what I chose. And that's what I feel like this song, the ending of this song sets up the album. It's like, I found some cool words that rhymed, so I sang them together.
Exactly.
That's so simple, but I love it so much.
Yes, I do too. And I think that it's delivered so effectively because the music is simple in comparison to what we're listening to. The lyrics are given a huge amount of respect, and we can hear John Prine singing throughout. There is no question that he is clear in his delivery.
Oh, it's just perfect diction throughout this entire album, yeah.
And that is to his benefit because the music, while there are memorable parts to the music, I think a lot of this music is very, very memorable, which is astonishing considering how simple it is. Mm-hmm. But another part of that interview that he talks about is how basically the melodies come from what work best with his lyrics.
Right.
And so there's no question as to this song sounding the way it does in comparison to what he's saying. It's really meant to be that way. And he knows that this is the tone that fits best with what he's saying. While I can see the marijuana aspect and I think that's humorous, I can absolutely understand the perspective of all these bad things could be happening around me. I had a staring contest with the oatmeal and the oatmeal won.
I want to talk about that because you're putting that humorous spin on it. It is such a depressing line. Bowl of oatmeal tried to stare me down and won. And it was 12 o'clock before I realized that I was having no fun. The way it's delivered in this song is not like I was stoned and then I went out and I got over it. It's not okay. But I want to get back to it. Like, I really wasn't thinking about, we're obviously going to be talking about drugs later on. I interpreted this song as just putting on this facade and winding up genuinely cheering yourself up.
That's interesting because for me, it was slightly different in that I was able to identify with the idea that, well, things bad could be happening, but just something in you always seems to be optimistic.
Yeah, but that's where I'm getting out of this is that, all right, things aren't good. I'm going to smile and it's going to be fake at first, an illegal smile. But by the end of the song, well done, hot dog bun, my sister's a nun. Like I've turned it around for myself.
But what a great way to spin that term because it would be illegal for him to do it in a certain context. But even from a legal perspective, he brings up this idea that, thought police come and arrest me and my judge is Hoffman, whatever that means. I
wanted to look more into that and I just didn't get around to it. I'm sure there's something there.
Same thing with me too. And I think that has more of a 60s context. But still, the idea is that it's not just illegal in terms of being inappropriate, but illegal from a legal sense.
Yeah.
I did like that a lot.
I mean, you love a good song that has multiple layers to it.
That's true. And that's why the second track disappointed me.
Yeah, I like this song. We're going to get to a couple songs that I kind of classify as, well, here's the country song.
Right, the stereotypical. Yeah, I felt the same way.
Things are, I don't want to blow my load here because it's going to come around to paradise, but blow up your TV, throw away your paper, go to the country, build you a home. And by the end of the song, we had lots of kids and they all found Jesus and we made things great. Like, it's a really fun, twangy kind of song, but in between Illegal Smile and especially the heavy weight of Hello in there, ooh.
Yeah, exactly. When I look at that message on Spanish Pipe Dream, I'm escaping the busyness of my situation.
Right. I like it in theory up to a certain point.
That's exactly what I'm talking about, because, and I might not be understanding exactly what's happening here, because this woman is dancing around a bar. She's topless, I believe we hear in one part of the lyrics. And she just says this mantra of blow up your TV, throw away your paper, go out into the country and find Jesus. Are you then saying that you have to live the simple life in order to
live a fulfilling life?
Yeah, right. Or like, is it possible that I'm not able to do that unless I'm finding Jesus?
No, I think the whole finding Jesus thing is just total surface level for exactly what it is. Just another point along the way of having a fulfilling life.
And maybe he actually heard this and that's what the person said, right?
Sure,
and so
sure.
I might be putting heavier weight on it than, what it's supposed to be. And I think that should be a warning sign to anyone who looks at it as deeply as I try to, where it's like, maybe not in this case. This is maybe more of an observation, not so much as something to derive a message from. And maybe that is why I'm not a huge fan of the song, is because there's nothing to dig deep into.
Sure. Yeah, it's just a story about this soldier and meets this lady and they go have a family out in the countryside. Okay, great. I don't dislike the song as much as I probably should or think I should, but I was never thinking about track listing until we just started talking about it just now. This is a weird place for it, but I don't know where else you'd put it either. So
moving into Hello in There, which, as you said, Mike, this is what a monumental, heavy song.
Great song. And again, we're going to keep talking about this one interview because he just referenced and explained so many songs in it that I think was essential to getting understanding of this album. I loved his point about he always wanted to grow up to be an old man. I thought that was so cute. But delivering papers and just being in a situation of being in an old folks home and sometimes having to pass off as someone's nephew because no one's come to visit them for so long, and just seeing the plight of the retirement community or the Alzheimer's wing or...
But that spans generations.
It does.
And the song is incredibly timeless because the narrator who's speaking may have been in a particular, or they lost their son in a particular war. Right. There is that angle to it. I mean, you could attribute a number of different timelines to this and it'd still be the same. There is nothing escaping the silence of old age.
Yeah. I want to talk about the chorus more than anything else. The song is absolutely beautiful, and I can't believe that in such a simple way he constructs the chorus this way. The first half of the chorus, the first two lines, that old trees just grow stronger and old rivers grow wilder every day. That is profound, and we were talking about in our previous episode, that's an optimistic message, and it's an uplifting arrangement in that chorus. Suddenly, immediately after those two lines, you lose part of that arrangement and it goes,
old people just grow lonesome, waiting for someone to say hello in there.
It starts off so well because it's just this message of things are the way they are. They'll just keep going the way they are, and that's fine.
But I also think it's, old trees just grow stronger. Like, there's wisdom in old age. There's something you can learn there, and no one's coming around to take that wisdom.
Yeah. But it delivers such an impact. And you know what does it besides the lyrics is that after he says that ending line, hello in there, hello, the music stops. When I first heard that, ooh, God, that was emotional because you're left to confront what is being
You're confronted with that reality. Absolutely. Right there. I want to talk a little bit more about the lyrics in the chorus there because I misheard it. I think I heard what I wanted to hear the first time because Prine is doing so much with rhyming throughout the entire album that when an opportunity is missed or he consciously chooses not to, it throws me for a loop a little bit. So, that old trees just grow stronger and old rivers grow wilder every day. So I'm expecting line 4 to end with a rhyme with day. Old people just grow lonesome, waiting for someone to say hello in there, hello. It's so profound that he abandons the rhyme, and that I didn't get the relief of the rhyme makes it hurt even more.
That is an excellent point. I mean, there are so many things in that chorus that all come to a head at once. Not to mention the fact that I think part of the same interview, he was saying how this song was him exercising every single chord that he had learned.
Yeah, right.
And put it all in one song. This song goes everywhere on a melodic sense.
Yes.
The combination of things, he abandons the rhyme, he abandons the music.
let's keep talking about that. This is not in the chorus. So now we're not talking about the outside world, the extended family coming to you. It's like the husband and wife. Me and Loretta, we don't talk much more. She sits and stares through the back door screen, and all the news just repeats itself.
Like some forgotten dream that we both seen.
It's the saddest thing I've ever heard is that this old couple together, they're not even talking anymore. Whether that's their relationship is gone or whether that their mental capacity is gone, it doesn't matter. It's awful.
What struck me was, let me put it this way. I am married to the woman that I'm going to be with for the rest of my life.
Yep,
I mean, and I'm looking forward to the point where we're just going to be sitting at home and there might not be anything to say, but there's something about it in this context.
Way. Yeah,
Here it's nothing's happening. I mean, the news just repeats itself. It's the same dream we've both seen.
Yep.
What a genius line, by the way, of just saying that in itself, of a shared dream, because it's the same reality seen from the same people. But the fact of the matter is they're not alone, but they've been with the person for that long.
They may as well be alone at this point.
Oof, you just suck the optimism right out of A Legal Smile, basically. You suck it right out of the album.
But what could I say if asked what's new? Nothing. What's with you? Nothing much to do. It's like, it's a little bit wordy and southerny for my taste a little bit there, but the way he delivers, nothing much to do. Just, he's accepted defeat.
So we have to ask the question. We are bringing up this, I mean, how do you describe it? It's like this really hard stuff to listen to without the music behind it.
Yeah.
I mean,
sure, I know. You just listen to us talk about it. Like, if you've never heard this album, you're thinking in your mind, oh my God, what is this song?
This is so depressing. Why are we listening to this, right? So why has it had the impact that it has? And I think it has to do with just that the music is really, this is every chord that John Prine has ever learned at this point.
It's so much for him, but it doesn't get in the way of the lyrics. It doesn't get in the way of the story. And he himself doesn't get in the way of the story.
It doesn't. And I think that he himself delivers the lyrics with such an earnestness.
Oh, he's a narrator, but he's also delivering as if he were the characters. It's so good.
Yeah, absolutely great.
That's why I think it's so effective, is because he's the perfect storyteller here.
Yes, I definitely agree with that. I think if he were not as good as he was, not as charismatic as he is, this song would not land.
Yeah.
Or at least it would be too depressing to get into. And he's just got a great balance in his music and his tone.
It would come across as fake.
Or heavy-handed.
Yeah. You want to talk about heavy-handed?
Now let's move on to Sam Stone. Oh my God.
Again, the title just coming because he needs to rhyme with home and alone or whatever. Okay, so be it. This is going to be, I think, the beginning of our connection to our discussion episode from earlier this month. We were talking about activism and musicians and politics. This is social commentary through and through of the day.
And it's not a pretty picture.
No, it's not, but it's the realistic picture that it sounded like at that time no one was really telling in as honest a way as this. And so I can see why this would have been so effective.
Yeah. And you know, let's just real quick with Hello in There, the moral is,
go talk to your grandparents.
Right. Exactly.
Call your mom.
Or even just a complete stranger in old folks' home. Just, do something for the elderly to give them something exciting in their life. Right. Mm-hmm. So now we go to Sam Stone where, I mean, let's put it that way. Maybe that's why that song isn't so depressive, is because it has a positive moral to it. When we get to Sam Stone, there is nothing you can do. We heard the story from Prine and Sturgill Simpson where they said these guys are coming back from the army. Mm-hmm. They are not taught how to reintroduce themselves into society. They were on drugs in war because what else was there to do? And they bring those habits back with them. And there's a moment there when they come back where there could be a reintroduction to society where they could start over, but that doesn't happen. And so they're bringing all of this back with them.
You're expected to just, you remember what it was like, so just go back to being like that. But you are changed.
You are changed. And if we just look at the lyrics on this, I mean, let's look at the chorus.
There's a hole in Daddy's arm where all the money goes. Jesus Christ died for nothing, I suppose. Little pitchers have big ears, don't stop to count the years. Sweet songs never last too long on broken radios.
I want to talk about religion in Prine's album here. Is I don't get the sense that he's overly religious.
I don't either.
Or even really likes it or cares about it that much. I think he uses it in his stories as it would fit that character.
This is what is so amazing about him. The amount of empathy that he has, because he is not attributing personal politics. You could argue that he is, and we'll get to that. But he's not bringing in his own religious context to the moral of the story. He's practical. He's not saying go find Jesus, everything is okay. Mm-hmm. Even in the second song we hear that, but that's just a detail. It's not a moral.
Yeah.
He brings it up as something to compare with, but it's
or
not
just to
the
put
point.
Life in perspective. It's like, I've gone through all of this, and this is where I'm at in my life, and this is the larger question that Prine's asking with a lot of these protest songs, him and plenty of other artists, is, so what was it all for? And that's what the line, Jesus Christ died for nothing, I suppose, because, well, here we are, and we're still there, and people are still dying, and the world isn't in a great place, so what are we even doing?
Not to mention, when you come back from war, you feel broken, sweet songs never last so long on broken radios.
That's a really powerful line. But did you hear his explanation for that in the interview?
Refresh my memory and everybody else's.
Just wherever he was, I think maybe he was at the post office at the time, but he had a broken radio and they kept trying to tape it back together and stuff. And he was just like, yeah, and I remembered we had a broken radio, so I just wrote it there in the song. You took this thing that has no connection to anything whatsoever and turned it into this beautiful lyric, and somehow that all works?
If you need proof of how talented and how incredibly wise John Prine is, these two songs, Hello in There and Sam Stone, if you're not invested at this point,
right,
nothing is going to invest you.
That's the thing. When you gave me this album to listen to, and I started listening to Illegal Smile for the first time, like, oh my God, what has Jeff given me? But then by the time I got past Sam Stone, like, I'm in.
We cannot overlook the fact that this album is approaching 50 years old.
No, the 70s were like 25 years ago, right?
Oh boy, do I have a harsh reality for you. Knowing that from something so long ago, this effective, this emotional, right?
Yeah.
Delivering such an impact, and we're only on track 4.
I know. I'm so tempted to just read the entire song because every line is so moving. It kills me, man.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. We should move along, but
it's an important song. You got to listen to it.
Let's go into Paradise.
So here is the second of the, here's the country song. And all right, it's about his hometown, but to me, it's the, I wish progress would stop. I just want it to be like the good old days. I can't get behind that because I want constant forward motion in society.
I have to argue with that.
Okay.
Because, now granted, this may be my perspective of what the lyrics are in this case, but did you look up the history of Paradise, Kentucky?
No, see, that's the thing, is I didn't look any further into this song in particular.
Okay, so let me bring in some background about this. Essentially, Paradise, Kentucky is a real place in Muhlenberg County, and it was a site for strip mines made by the Peabody Coal Company. Okay, so that is all exactly as it said.
Real story here, yeah.
Real story. However, the town was still in partial form at the time of the song. It would eventually become completely overrun by the Paradise fossil plant, leaving only a cemetery behind, as this song seems to predict, especially with lyrics like,
when I die, let my ashes float down the Green River, let my soul roll on up to the Rochester Dam. I'll be halfway to heaven with paradise waiting, just 5 miles away from wherever I am.
If you've never seen strip mining, environmentally it is horrendous.
Yeah.
And that's what happens to the town that his parents are from. And it's heartbreaking to hear that it was after the song was written, where it was just chalked up to the progress of man, that the entire environment was gone.
And I can kind of get behind it. Like, I do see where the song is going there. Like, you took my home away from me in a way, and I wish I could still have it. Like, I get that. But I feel like the way that it's delivered,
because of the bluegrass.
Yes. It just gives me all these preconceptions of what country music is. My wife left me and my dog got shot and I just drank a 6-pack. Like, I'm being so awful right now. But the way that the song is delivered, it loses its message to naive Mike here.
I don't see anything that wouldn't attribute to myself either in a different way. And what I mean by that is my dad, for some reason, I don't know how he gets into the stuff that he does. I mentioned before in the first episode, he was this guy huge in the smooth jazz, and my sister sister and I hated it and we went our own way.
Right.
Nowadays, he brings me all different kinds of bluegrass. Now, I have some groups in bluegrass that I will listen to on a repeated basis. Granted, they take more of a jazzy feel. They spice it up a little bit. But traditional bluegrass, I've heard it called the white man's blues, where it's like, and country is called that as well, the white man's blues, where, we say this about blues music, like, oh, every song sounds the same. There is maybe a trickle of truth to that because the instrumentation is exactly the same. Then yeah, it's going to be hard to really differentiate one song from another. What I think makes me feel more connected to Paradise in that way is the lyrical content, is the idea behind the fact that this is their homeland, they can't go back to it. And especially when we think about the biography of John Prine, where he's from Chicago, as far as anyone's concerned, or from the suburbs west of Chicago, actually. So his background isn't really as a Kentuckian, even though they would make repeated trips back. And John Prine says, I might as well be because, this is where I'm from.
Sure.
So that removal of the homeland is more so what I got from it than progress is bad.
I get that. It is weird that suddenly at this point in the album, I can't pay attention to the lyrics. The music is ruining the message for me.
Yeah.
That's super weird.
I
acknowledge it.
Right. And I don't think if anyone listening to this had that same hesitation going into something heavy in bluegrass, they would feel the same way. I mean, we're not blaming anybody for feeling that or saying you shouldn't feel that way. If something is very similar to something else, we'll call it out. And that's exactly how we feel about this. There wasn't enough to differentiate it. But what I'm saying is that lyrically, there's a continuation of that drama that I feel could have been more effective with maybe a different musical style to it.
The last thing I want to say about this song is, and I haven't listened to it yet, but I was just like, man, I want to listen to some more live performances from Prine. And I saw NPR put up something just as recent as August. Paradise was the closing song where all these guest musicians came on, and that was the closing with everyone together. I'm like, so this is the one that they close with?
I have a more practical reason for that.
Yeah.
The song that's easiest for a group of people to play is the one that has traditional chords.
Got it. So get everyone up here. We can all just easily do this.
I hate to pull the curtain away.
Yeah.
But that's kind of like the magic behind that.
Got it.
When you see a large group, it's just simple chords. Let's go into Pretty Good, which kind of changes the style and everything. And we're now going into like maybe something that's more, I would say, maybe sarcastic, maybe more apathetic.
Yeah. This is kind of like a narcissistic, weird song for Prine thrown in the mix here. But I love the twang, which is weird coming off of Paradise. Pretty good, not bad. I can't complain. Actually, everything's just about the same. I think that response to how you doing, that's just man, every time you see someone, you say, hey, how you doing? And it's like, I'm doing good. How are you? Good. And you just keep on walking. But actually in your head, you're like, everything's same as it was yesterday. Why are you asking me this?
That's so funny you say it that way because I never considered that angle, even though I was tracing along with it because I'm listening to the lyrics and thinking, wow, this is really getting pretty heavy. Like,
yeah.
Midway through, we're hearing about a woman raped by a dog. And then at the end, we're hearing about God's feeding oatmeal.
Let's go to the ending of the song here because this gets more into him and his commentary on religion. And I want to know if this is John Prine saying it or if these are the characters in the song saying it.
I heard Allah and Buddha were singing at the Savior's feet, and up in the sky an Arabian rabbi fed Quaker oats to a priest. Pretty good, not bad, they can't complain, 'cause actually all them gods are just about the same.
Because he changes the lyrics here from he's changed the lyrics a couple times. He goes, everything is just about the same. Actually, all them dogs is just about the same. And here at this point, we get actually all them gods, which is actually dogs and gods. I love that part. Actually, all them gods are just about the same. So it's more of that. I agree with the song, so it resonates with me.
But how odd, considering the audience that would normally be attracted to this kind of music.
Right? You expect the Southern Catholic Christianity, Baptist, like all that. Yeah. And then you're just like, gods, whatever.
But just wait till we get to the next track, right?
I know.
Right, we're not even there yet. But, focusing on what Pretty Good does well, this rock background, I think with the lyrics, if you want to talk about like rebellion, right?
Yeah. You just picture the quintessential cool guys, like Pretty Good, not bad. Can't complain.
And I would completely disagree based on what we're hearing in the lyrics.
Exactly, I know.
This is monumental.
Everything's actually pretty terrible here.
This is terrible. What are you talking about? Right. It's humorous in that way. I think that comes
That's
across.
why I like it.
That's why I like it too. And again, Prine as a songwriter, this empathetic person who can speak to all these different perspectives. And here he is speaking from the perspective of having no perspective, of having, zero conclusions or moods or something coming from all of this stuff. I mean, what an interesting message.
It's like he has so much to say, but it's wrapped up in, I got nothing.
Exactly.
Which is so weird.
So then let's get into it. Let's talk about your flag decal won't get you into heaven anymore.
This is definitely more social war commentary. I mean, it's in your face for sure.
Absolutely in your face. And I think just what really gets me with this is I think about who is listening to this album. Now,
right.
We have our, in the 1960s, there is the base that doesn't want to go to war. That is, huge amount of protest music. It's 1971. This is within the Vietnam War era. And so,
but it's not bluegrass music that's promoting those messages.
Certainly that's a bit odd for that to happen, or at least from our definition of what that is. It could have been different in the early 70s.
Right. I mean, we're looking back. We know all of the really big musical acts, but who knows what was in and out, who was delivering what kind of message. But this is more of that scathing commentary, especially coming off the previous track. But this brings it to real life stuff going on right now, as opposed to his own fabricated story.
It's a good point. It really does put him in a particular time and place. But let's get into the specific lyrics on this, because I feel like my favorite thing about this is the character, the person that is so ingrained in patriotism, covering their car in flags, covering it so much that they hit a tree.
Right.
They go to heaven. They're confused as to why they're not allowed into heaven.
But I was so patriotic, Jeff. Why can't? Because that's not what this was all about.
I mean, what a genius allegory, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like,
one nation under God, slapping flags all over your car.
But exactly, it's the fact that there's no separation of church and state here.
Yes.
We're in the Northeast United States. We're on the coast. We
are the coastal elites. Let's say it.
Right, exactly. So, I mean, our perspective, this fits right in line with that. Here comes this guy from, well, not really from Kentucky, from Chicago, but roots in Kentucky.
But playing to that bass, going what we were talking about in the discussion episode, playing to your bass and saying what they're not expecting to hear.
And here's the honky tonk in the background.
Yep.
I mean, it's sort of like saying, like, I never would have thought I would have heard this in that particular context, but how effective it is.
It's so effective. I feel like you can hear before the line starts, but your flag decal. I feel like the unspoken words there, I hate to tell you, but your flag decal won't get you into heaven anymore. Like, he's just got that, by the way, guys.
Yeah, it's just, we would quote specific lyrics, but really it is the story that kind of has a beginning and end, and it's worth hearing all the way through.
Hold on. Favorite lyric in the whole thing?
Well, I went to the bank this morning, and the cashier said to me, if you join the Christmas club, we'll give you 10 of them flags for free. Well, I didn't mess around a bit. I took him up on what he said, and I stuck them stickers all over my car and one on my wife's forehead.
Genius. So then I want to get into the next track, Far From Me, where things get more personal.
Yeah, we're back heavy again.
Yeah, we're back at heavy. We had this great moment of levity. Now we're back into the trenches of emotion here. And I got to tell you, Mike, this one hits.
Yeah?
It hits me hard.
I feel the same way. Does it hit on like a personal introspective level, or just it's a good story?
I think.
Or am I asking too much for a personal tale on a podcast here?
Yeah, right. I have to say that parts of this I can attach to, but a good amount is how he describes it.
The beginning of the song is... It's Prine delivering it, but it's clearly a character in the story. And this man in the story already knows that his wife telling him to change the station, it isn't really about the music.
Interesting, because I took it as just a casual relationship, basically.
I feel like when you're in those situations where you're just hanging out, listening to a song and doing the dishes or something like that.
Oh, sure, like where you're talking about a routine in a relationship. Yeah, I could see that. Yes,
I think that's where I was coming from with that.
Sure, I could see it. I think the reason why I didn't find it that way was because he's down on himself. There's a sense of optimism, but at the same time he's saying, is a question really a question when you know the answer to?
Yes. Oh, it's too real. I think that's what gets the song
it's
across.
so real. It's so real.
Is that he's already explaining the end of it partway through the lyrics in there. The one that really hit me.
While we used to laugh together and we danced to any old song. Well, she still laughs with me, but she waits just a second too long.
This relationship ended 20 years ago, and it's just continuing out of force of habit, maybe some bit of convenience there, but you don't want to listen to it anymore because it's such a sad tale, this couple here.
And maybe you're right about this, because he does say in the chorus, it's funny how old broken bottles look just like a diamond ring. Because but it's far, far from me. Right. So that whole idea, a broken bottle far away looks like a diamond ring. Mm-hmm. And he's using symbolism here. Like, he's far away from this diamond ring. And I think you can see that in both contexts of, like, the ring is going away, right? Like that's where the relationship is heading.
The spark is gone.
The spark is gone.
Let's be honest.
And what I'm thinking, in my perspective, the broken bottle ring, going far away, is him seeing that possibility of proposing going away because this relationship is kind of falling flat when it could have taken off. That's what really hurt when listening to this, was that idea that he had, a goal of a diamond ring, but it's far, far away now. This is exactly why I could not recommend this enough, because songs like this, which it's not a Hello in There or a Sam Stone, but something as simple as this with such amazing symbolism is far greater than how it sounds.
I think that's what sets this song apart, is that the previous songs, they are literal stories, and this one he is using symbolism, even if it's fairly simple in terms of the rest of the context of this album. That's what makes it stick out more.
Agreed.
So we have this song, and then next up we have Angel from Montgomery. There's a line in Angel from Montgomery that I feel could have been in Far From Me, and I think that's why these songs work together so well.
How the hell can a person go to work in the morning and come home in the evening and have nothing to say?
It's like we're getting a lot of relationship talk here at this point in the album, where it's, how can these two people be together? How can they be a couple? How can they be in love? You have nothing to say to each other? And that's different from what you and I were talking about earlier. We're comfortable in our silence because we love each other, and it's okay. We don't have to constantly be yapping at each other. But this is you got nothing? You have absolute nothing. Okay, then.
But, here's another song of a fading relationship. And this time it actually is a marriage.
Yep.
But this time also from the woman's perspective.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, it's an introductory line, but I think the first line of the song is probably the most powerful, right? I am an old woman. First of all, we're getting that introduction to him being way different than what he actually is.
I remember in the interview, I think he touched on this as well. It was like, do you think it's okay if I sing about this? People are like, no, why are you talking about you being an old woman? He's like, well, I'm going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love the confidence in his music here.
And I think he's right to do it, because he is just projecting characters, and what a character he has here. I mean, the whole idea, and I love his explanation of that this is a woman who is feeling older than she actually is, and she wakes up and she's just got nothing to do because this guy comes home and he has nothing to say. I mean, when you look at this just without the music, you're thinking, what is this actually about? It's just a whole lot of nothing going on, and that's the point. But
it's a song about nothing happening. Yeah, there's a line later, a couple lines. There's flies in the kitchen, I can hear them there buzzing, and I ain't done nothing since I woke up today. It's just I can't pull myself to get up and do something.
And feeling older than you actually are, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the amount of experience that John Prine has in his life, he is not an old man when he records this album.
That's the thing, is that was something that my wife Mary was asking me about. She was like, wait, how old was he when he did this album? This sounds like the wisdom of 1,000 years.
And how old is he, Mike?
He's in his mid-20s, like 25 at this point. This is far and beyond what someone who's 25 should be able to so perfectly write about. I'm 10 years older than that right now as of this recording. And I've had these thoughts, but to be able to commit this to art like this, maybe it takes a young man's brain. I don't know, man.
I have to kind of step outside of this critical review real quick just to say that what John Prine is doing at this stage in his life, having this much wisdom, but being only 25,
what am I doing with my life?
Well, it's not even that. It's more so that what are we doing? We're listening to an album that neither of us would have otherwise picked.
Yep.
I did it from a perspective of I just want to hear something new. I would never consider this kind of music. I've had some albums of country that I've listened to or bluegrass or whatever. I've had some history in that regard with very small examples, but I would never consciously think, okay, let me go to this because it's country. That's not how I roll, right? But here I am listening to this album and I'm getting this perspective of a number of different perspectives from this person who is 10 years younger than I am, right? And not to say that I didn't have this experience of my own. I worked in retail for 8 years, longer than that actually, and the amount of perspectives I was able to get because I sat down with people for a large number of those years and chatted with them for a long time. Just in the nature of the work I did, I would basically meet with people for an hour each. And, I would see them on a week-to-week basis. So I would get to hear these different perspectives. Getting that kind of experience has helped to open up my worldview, if you will. And that's not a coincidental thing. It is known that if you go and experience all of these different cultures, that you will gain this kind of wisdom because you can see these different perspectives and attribute them to your own experience.
Yeah, for sure. I was listening to mention Tooth and Nail on the last podcast episode. They've actually recently been doing their own podcast, The Label. A couple of the guys from Emory are hosting it. And one of the things they were talking about is they were so thankful for being a band and being able to go on the road, and especially the international tours, is they admitted, had they not had that opportunity, they would be racist Southerners right now. They put it in their own words that way.
What a quote.
And it's just being able to step outside yourself and see the world opens your mind to other things. Just jumping off of that, again, from the outside critical perspective, again, I reiterate, that's what I love about this podcast, is this introduces me to things I would never have listened to and makes me wonder, what else am I missing out on that I would enjoy? But I don't know what I don't know.
And so I have to say, bringing us back into the album, this is why I think the song works at this point. We are in the later half. We're at track 9 at this point, out of 13.
Right.
For him to say, I am an old woman at track 9, at this point, we've already got the message that he is attacking many different perspectives. Mm-hmm. And so for him to say this, it is nowhere near as shocking as it probably would have been if it was earlier. We allow him that ability to go into a territory that he can't relate to personally because he's not a woman, of course, or in the situation, but he can relate the story because of just how well he's able to translate that to his own experience and his own talent as a songwriter. By the way, if you have not heard this cover from Bonnie Raitt, it is fantastic. She does an amazing job with this. I think that's all we have to say about Angel from Montgomery. Yeah. Just one thing I do want to bring up, the whole Montgomery business. There is a bit of a question as to what does Montgomery mean exactly? Is it about Montgomery being, in Alabama, the site of civil unrest, or, it does have to do with a particular example? And he basically just said himself that it's about a woman from Montgomery. Really has nothing else to do about it. There's no real symbolism. It's just that. But people have attached symbolism to it based on its location. Pretty fascinating to see that angle as well. Now let's go into Quiet Man. And Quiet Man doesn't do much for me except for that lyric where Tuesday fights Wednesday.
Last Monday night, I saw a fight between Wednesday and Thursday over Saturday night. Tuesday asked me what was going on. I said Sunday's in the meadow and Friday's in the corn.
The way he plays with words there is just spectacular. But I do love the delivery in the, you got news for me? I got nothing for you. Don't pin your blues on me. Just go ahead and do whatever you wish to. I love that. Like, you're coming at me. I don't know if this is the right interpretation for it, but the way I interpret the song is, you're coming at me with all these histrionics. This has nothing to do with me. This is all about you right now. You go be you. Leave me out of it.
Yeah, I can see that. It's just, I think because there's no character that I can accurately picture from these lyrics.
Yeah, because he's doing doing such weird stuff with lyrics and with rhyming. This definitely feels like that he's just playing throughout the entire song. Like when he goes hocus pocus maladjusted, don't you think my tears get rusted? This is definitely one of those, you're probably just looking for a rhyme and that's what you arrived at. Okay.
Yeah, and so, but because there's no characters or really, there's no clear picture I can get, I'm not really getting anything from it.
Yeah.
I'm not getting a better sense of who he is from this.
Sure. And I think that's why the chorus is what jumped out at me, because I love its delivery and because it's repeated so many times. And this is another one of those where it's structured into 3 verses and 3 choruses. It definitely feels like well, this is what I got to do, so this is how I'm going to do it. I don't know. Like, I don't dislike the song, but we're starting to get toward the end of the album where he's starting to lose me a little bit.
Yeah, I can definitely see that here. And it kind of takes a turn of pretty good where it's like this more active background, but not really much to say that I can take away from.
He and his character, if there is one, seem kind of disinterested.
Yeah.
And I don't want that to come off on me, but it is a little bit.
Yeah, understood.
The thing that killed me about Quiet Man is you have it go through these verses and this chorus and this verse and this chorus. And each time it builds up a little more. And after the 3rd chorus, it's built up so far and this electric guitar comes in and I just expect it to explode into this amazing jam session. And it lets me down and it just comes down and continues on with the next bit of the song. And I was just really expecting, we're going into full on rock territory here. And it would be so clever to do so at this point in the song, but it doesn't do so. And it continues to let me down every time I listen to it.
Interesting. I never would have thought of that. So like the solo in Pretty Good, yeah, we can see that there's moments where that rock angle can come in there.
Yeah.
And to not get it at Quiet Man, no, that's a good point. That would have been a nice...
left me hanging.
Yeah, it would have been a nice angle
That's
to it. So let's go into something that I feel brings the drama back, and that is Donald and Lydia.
Yeah, I think this is the final highlight on the album for me.
Oh, mine too, and I love this song. I love it because we know from The Lonesome Death of Hattie Carroll from Bob Dylan that there's a structure. Here is a verse with actions and a chorus of the moral. And we're hearing that here, definitely. Even though, I will complain slightly that this song reminds me too much of Far From Me in terms of the way it's structured and it's in the same key, I think.
Okay.
Which doesn't help anything.
And more just failed relationships going on here.
Well, could you say failed or could you just say
it
never happened?
Yeah.
Right, exactly. And that's when I view it from the perspective of, this is like a masturbation song, it's genius because I mean, and like John Prine has said himself, these 2 characters were never introduced. No one introduced them. They didn't introduce themselves.
Well, hold on, because let's talk about introductions. What do you think about him literally introducing the characters and the final concept by name?
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, but this is why I can love this song more than Quiet Man. I have a name, I have a character, I've got a description. So there's this Lydia character. She is in her room reading romance magazines. It sounds like she doesn't really talk to many people. It's very
have
quiet.
Much going for her. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. And so we get that character. Here comes Donald. He's in his own head most of the time, right? Because what's that lyric, Mike?
There are spaces between Donald and whatever he said. Strangers had forced him to live in his head. It's like, so he doesn't bother to say what's on his mind because are people just shutting him down? Are they laughing at him? Are they disregarding what he has to say?
What else do you need to tell me? I mean, like, I know right away what you're getting at.
She's kind of a loser. He's kind of a loser. And yeah, I mean, circumstances, whatever, but neither of them are striving to do more at the same time.
So, spoiler alert, they finally make love, right? And it's this humongous scene. They make love in the mountains and in all these different places.
They made love in the mountains. They made love in the streams. They made love in the valleys. They made love in their dreams. But when they was finished, there was nothing to say, 'cause mostly they made love 10 miles away.
Oh my God.
And he just ends the song. It's like with a confident smile. It's like, haha, love it.
Because he knows how clever he's being, right?
Yeah. You can feel it. You can see it.
It's not only that, but I mean, just also the other, I think, great masturbatory lyric that I want to spotlight here. Very well said. He envisioned the details of romantic scenes after midnight in the stillness of the barracks latrine. I mean, right. You don't have to have it told to you what he's doing in the latrine.
Sure.
What else could you? But how romantic is that, right? This is such an ode to masturbation, but it's just so romantic. What a weird confluence of things that are going on in the song.
6 o'clock news, Jeff.
This hits hard.
Yeah?
Yeah, it
All
does.
right, you're going to have to lead this because at this point in the album, I've enjoyed it, but I have nothing to say about 6 o'clock news.
6 o'clock news falls into the pattern of I'm not getting a very clear picture as to who I'm looking at right now.
Yeah.
But here comes the context from an interview or from an article.
Okay.
And here's who it was based off of. And oh my God, this song is shocking.
All right.
Okay, so let me paint the story here.
Please.
John Prine has a friend, a childhood friend of his. He's a bit active. He can be rough. He can fight. He gets into trouble. John Prine, I believe, says that this person picked him as his friend. So, it's this guy who has delinquent tendencies, right? When you hear stories like that, it's not going to end well. We've heard many songs like this, Pearl Jam's Jeremy being one of them, right? A good example where these troubled backgrounds lead to not very fortunate outcomes. And so we learn about this kid, but there's something very interesting about this. First of all, we don't know where the perspective sits. We don't know if this is the kid, if this is John Prine talking about the kid.
Gotcha.
There's this narrator we can't identify. However, we have some clues. The first clue is that we hear about this diary in a closet, and that has a lot of significance that I'll get to. But there's just this brilliant lyric.
Stranger in the closet, like the diary. The past is running faster, singing harmony.
So there's something happening in the present and the past is singing harmony. Ooh, but there's something in that diary that obviously someone doesn't want exposed, right? The diary's locked. There's symbolism here. And then this person discovers the diary, reads the diary, and then ends up with their brain on the sidewalk at the end of the song on the 6 o'clock news. Here's what happened to this kid. He gets in trouble. He goes to court. The lawyer on the defense exposes that this kid's mother is his sister.
Oh.
And that's what's in the diary.
Gotcha.
And so the lyric, "Come on, baby, spend the night with me," is what the mother hears or the sister hears from her father. And so that is this story. It's creepy. It's honestly really creepy to listen to.
I can see that because the delivery of "Come on, baby, spend the night with me" sounds like a creepy dude.
Somewhere I read on the internet said, think of this from the perspective of the mother. It's disturbing. It's absolutely disturbing, but I appreciate being taken on this journey to figure out what the song's about. Let me put it that way.
And then we go to Flashback Blues.
What the hell is this about? What is this, Mike?
I don't know, man.
I just want to mention, now we've talked about negatives that this album has. We're not going to say this is a perfect album. We didn't say Thriller was a perfect album with all the, sales in the millions or whatever. Nothing is perfect. If I have to say something that really brings this experience down for me, it is that Pretty Good, Quiet Man, and Flashback Blues are just too cryptic, or they do not give me a character.
Right.
And everything else gives me a character. This does not, and I cannot attach myself to it. So I don't know what I'm listening to, but it's a nice ending.
Spent most of my youth out hobo cruising, and all I got for proof is rocks in my pockets and dirt in my shoes.
Great lines, but what's
going on,
mean?
man?
What are you telling me?
Okay.
So are you saying you're hitchhiking? Are you bumming around like rocks in the shoes? Yeah, of course, because you're traveled, but what's the moral to the story?
Yeah, this is one where it's a fun song. I had no desire to learn more about it. There may be nothing more to learn about it. It certainly is. It brings you back up a little bit to leave you on a high note, at least just from an emotional musical consumption standpoint.
Right, exactly.
And maybe that's why it needs to be there.
Yeah, maybe.
It's just leave you with a honky-tonky song.
Sure, I can see it. Well, certainly better than ending with 6 o'clock news, right?
Well, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Even if you did know what that was about, that would not be a good way to end the album.
No, definitely. So yeah, give me something lighthearted, da-da-da-da-da, basic chords. Yep, used to it. So there you go. John Prine's 1971 album, John Prine.
Yeah.
I gotta say that recording quality on this is spectacular. I think they recorded this in Memphis.
Sounds great.
The personnel on here, I believe his name is Reggie Young, playing the lead guitar on some of the tracks, doing the solo and pretty good. Excellent performances by everybody. I think there's enough variation everywhere that this is it's a terrific expose on character.
Yeah.
And I mean, just a great exercise of poetry. I can't say that this really produces any kind of social change, like, relating back to our previous episode. It doesn't really head in that direction.
We got away from that a lot, didn't we, toward the end of the album here? Where
we absolutely did.
Those couple songs that touch on war and drug use. But then we get to very different kinds of stories, and then we wrap up with a song, as far as we know, about nothing.
Yeah.
And the social commentary very deaf is far, far from me by this point.
Clever. Yeah, I would agree. Almost 50 years later, not much has really changed in terms of what we're hearing. We could relate to a lot of the story that's here.
Yes.
And how amazing is that? Now, I mean...
timeless is an overused word, but I think a lot of material here is pretty timeless.
I would absolutely agree with that. And I think that that's why that this album has staying power with the people who are influenced by it. There is an endless amount of covers that have been done to songs from this album.
Yeah, it definitely looks that way. Just from a cursory glance, I saw so many.
And not just the 13-year-olds on their guitar on YouTube. We're talking like Bonnie Raitt, John Fogerty, Joan Baez, Johnny Cash covered him, Bette Midler covered him, the notorious critic Robert Christgau. Say what you will about his criticisms. A lot of people tend to throw them away. They think he's just too much of a miser and they wouldn't listen to him.
Okay.
He's a hard guy to please. He said about this that this was an authentic, rather catchy extension of Nashville and Appalachia.
All right.
I would definitely agree with his take on this. If you also pay attention to lists and you like that particular one Rolling Stone did in the early 2000s and then revamped in 2012, I believe it was the 500 greatest albums of all time list. It is most recently at number 452. Respectful.
Yeah.
So it is fair to say that this has gotten a good reception, even though neither of us heard of this album or this person before this point.
That's the thing. I don't think I had ever heard the name John Prine before. I likely had in some kind of something somewhere, but it certainly never stuck with me.
This album did not sell all that well. It did well.
It sounded like
enough.
It did fine.
It did fine. He made a career out of it.
Right, and he made lots of big name friends out of being a part of this scene and doing this album.
You know, we have to talk about that history just a little bit because it is astonishing if you go back and look at his history. I mean, you can tell that he had something going, but the amount of support that he got from all of these different places.
It really sounds like he was an artist's artist.
Exactly. People have called him a songwriter's songwriter. You're absolutely right about that. This is a fun story. Roger Ebert was walking out of a film screening. He was just disinterested and happened to pop into this bar where John Prine was playing and reviewed his performance instead.
Awesome. That is so cool.
And it's amazing. And it shows up in the Chicago publications. He's saying, you know, I'm not usually a music review, but here's John Prine.
Yeah.
And says these remarkably wonderful things about him. He hooks up with Steve Goodman. Steve Goodman has a number of good folk songs as well. Chris Christopherson comes into the picture after Steve Goodman brings John Prine to New York where he meets Bob Dylan.
Right. That story is great.
The whole story about Bob Dylan showing up behind him to
ladies and
play
gentlemen,
harmonica.
Bob Dylan. Yeah, sure, whatever.
So he's gotten a huge amount of support in his career because of, I mean, this is what you do with good talent. You don't have to be famous. You don't have to reach for millions and millions of listeners. But when you get the support of other artists, you'll go far enough. And to the point where, like, even after throat cancer in 1998, you heard his voice in the interview. If you listen to the interview, he's just really gravelly voice now.
And when he tries to, I say tries, I don't mean to put it in air quotes like that. When he tries to play the old songs, he has to put a new spin on them, but it's undeniably still him.
But that's because he always sounded wise, and now that he has the voice to match it with the age, I mean,
you're right.
It's even more effective than I think it was then.
Sure.
So, I mean, maybe he'll get a ton more listens and press now because maybe it's easier to swallow this guy who's now in his 70s. I think he turned 70 this year. Maybe it's easier now for us to see him become more popular because it's easy for us to digest his image and his music, right?
Yeah.
Let's see. But I would absolutely recommend people listen to this.
For sure.
There is no doubt in my mind that you will find something to enjoy in here. It spans all different kinds of genres when it comes to the quality of the songwriting.
Yep.
And I think that's what it's supposed to do. And I just want to mention as further listening.
Okay.
Apart from all these other albums and the covers, yes, go seek out the covers and go listen to them. Bruised Orange is another one I would definitely recommend listening to from John Prine. That album is from 1978. I would also recommend Pink Floyd's The Wall.
Really? All right. What's the connection here?
Okay, first of all, it is no secret that Roger Waters loves John Prine, hugely influenced by John Prine. Now, I bring up The Wall and also The Final Cut because in those two albums, you're hearing an acoustic countryside to things. And when you hear Roger Waters singing about characters, you can really hear that he's trying to peel back the progressive rock sound of Pink Floyd to something more acoustic.
Oh, okay.
And when you do that, you enter into John Prine territory because your focus is on character and less on style. And we can have an argument about if that's what Pink Floyd is trying to do all along, where the style overtakes the message. But when they peel it back and it gets to the acoustic moments of The Wall, yes, it's about a singular character, and that's what the whole album is about. But the way that it's approached is similar in tone to what John John Prine would do with any of his characters. So I challenge people to see the comparison between the two.
Okay. This album is going to color how I listen to so much other stuff. I have artists that I enjoy, bands that I enjoy. They'll do solo albums. Like Matt Pryor has done his own solo albums and he's bringing in the folk side of things now. And I'm like, I can hear John Prine in that now. And now I understand where this is all coming from.
Yeah, I could say the same thing with artists like Carly Simon, Bette Midler, John Denver, Johnny Cash. I can easily see parallels when they talk about characters and when they focus on stories other than their own. I can easily see John Prine as some kind of influence to that. So it's just so odd to me that I've probably heard the covers maybe once, never heard of John Prine.
Right.
And I mean, astonishing, but could you say that they've done a good job of converting his otherwise Appalachian, Nashville sound into something more popular?
They're fine enough, but when you go back to the source here from the original storyteller himself, that's where the true life of the song lives. So that is our review of the self-titled debut album from John Prine. Again, we are always interested in hearing what you have to say about the albums we review, so join the discussion on our subreddit or send us your take, feedback at lo-fidelity.info.
Next month on the show, we will begin a string of episodes revolving around the underrated British rock band XTC by discussing the band's history and reviewing their first breakthrough, the album Drums and Wires. Until then, thank you for listening to this episode, and we'll see you again in a couple weeks.